This video essay is part of an ongoing investigation into phenomenological facets of video game design, gameplay, and concept. In the current examination, I address the relationship between the Japanese video game Exit 8, 2023, and Platform 8, 2024, and the notion of spatiotemporal in-betweenness, or MA. The latter is a term that stands for pause, gap, or emptiness in the Japanese philosophical tradition, a concept which dissolves disjunction in space-time relationships and transcends conventional definition of space-time interval. Through a qualitative analysis of gameplay and exploration of the salient feature distinguishing X8 from Platform 8, and examination of their audiovisual design, I argue that these two video games engage in a lingering dialogue between the notion of MA and Michel Foucault's Heterotopia, a liminal space that subverts rules and accepted habits of living and acting within the social habitus. According to the French philosopher, heterotopias are spaces with multiple meanings, places for the affirmation of differences, but also the means of escape from authoritarianism and repression. The heterotopia is then an ambiguous and ambivalent space of elsewhere that produces a collection of differences and intermediaries between utopian and dystopian spaces. I argue that the spatiotemporal crevasse or liminal space depicted in Exit 8 and Platform 8 serves both as a destabilizing force against social rules and also as a fertile ground for alternative ways of perceiving reality. The entrenched social habits constructed within the urban habitus create liminal spaces that are traversed but not lived in and often overlooked: subways, underground corridors, train cars, and public space which are experienced as transitional spatiotemporal places en route to distant destinations. Our interaction with these spaces is most often characterized by an attentive, functional, performative relationship. I assert that the shared space depicted by the two Japanese video games, subway, corridors, trains, seats, etc., constantly challenge our perception of what is alien to us, and to follow Bernard Waldenfeld's examination of otherness, the nature of what it is in between us and others. From the gameplay experience of Exit 8 Platform 8, a critique of everyday life emerges, raising concerns about the function of public spaces and their role in shaping the habits of living, thinking, and behaving of masses of individuals. Lastly, the decision of juxtapose these two video games is a result of their analogous conceptual logic in terms of gameplay and overall design setting. Both games belong to the same Japanese video game developer, Kotake Created, with Platform 8 launched 1 year after the release of Exit 8 as an extension of the series. Exit and A Platform A are third-person games that take place in similar visual settings in the metro system of contemporary Japan. In Exit A, the player travels through the same subway corridor over and over. In Platform A, the gameplay occurs on a moving subway train, with the player navigating from car to car. Repetition of gestures and recurring spaces are key features in both games. To advance to the next scenario, the player must pay close attention to the details of the environment, identifying any anomalies or differences compared to the initial setting. Examples of such differences include changes in the size of advertisement posters, positions of serving doors, lighting variation in the corridor subway car, as well as sudden sounds or events. Failure to notice this alteration while attempting to move forward in space will reset the game to the beginning. The objective in both games is to reach Unit 8, whether Exit or Platform. The game can be reset in two ways, either by missing an environmental change or through events that hint at the player's demise, such as sudden blackout, flooding, or paranormal encounters. Missing a change in the environment returns the player to Exit 0 or Platform 0. Furthermore, the only indication that the player has successfully advanced to the next step in the game is through poster signs. In Exit A yellow sign at the end of the corridor displays the number of the next exit. In Platform A, the digital displays inside the car show the upcoming platform. Apart from these signs, the player navigates through corridors and cars that appear nearly identical. Two common elements of game design are noteworthy. In both games, the player consistently encounters only a single individual, a person dressed in office attire, mobile in hand, holding a briefcase. In Exit A, this person is walking down the corridor from the opposite direction. In Platform A, the person is seated in the car's train, staring at his mobile phone. In both games, the corridors and the subway train are otherwise empty. This is a distinct feature, and such spaces are usually bustling with people. I delve into the implication of this later. A space that repeats itself manifests temporal loopholes. Instances of repeated space-time experience open fissures into ordinary perception of temporal and spatial reality. When the player repeatedly walks the same set of corridors, subway cars, gameplay implies that the process may repeat infinitely. Being unable to reach exit or platform A might condemn us to endless replication of our action in the subway cars or corridor. This characteristic of the Japanese game connects with the notion of ma, the atemporal space of phenomenological reality in the Japanese philosophical tradition. Ma also closely relates to the predicament of Kitaro Nishida, a prominent scholar of the Kyoto school who built his theoretical framework at the intersection of Eastern and Western philosophical traditions. He addresses the understanding of phenomenological reality by maintaining that the distinction between the objective and subjective world can be reconciled only within the metaphysical and temporal space of what he calls intuitive knowledge. This is the place where the sensuous world, not yet conceptualized, and the concept of the world, no longer senses but abstracted, are both encountered. According to the Shina, it's this space in between object and subject that is the only place of phenomenological reality. This is also where the in-betweenness of Ma dwells. By repeatedly traversing the same set of empty corridors, encounter the same arrangement of signs, light, doors, and crossing paths with the same person at the same moment, the player enters a liminal dimension, one that exists outside the physical reality we experience as we face the screen of the laptop or gaming machine. The space of Ma, temporal in-betweenness, spatial aberration. The very fact that the same environment, corridors and subway cars, serves as an aperture to alternative versions of reality, anomalies, and supernatural presences, seems to allude to one of the main perceptual characteristics of the notion of Ma, the multiple dimension of being, of spatio-temporal instances, a unique understanding of phenomenological reality that accords with Nishida's notions of intuitive knowledge. When the player walks down the same corridor 10 or more times, the ability to recognize differences and recall previous iteration of the corridor becomes blurred. Is the size of that sign the same as it was in the corridor just passed? Or is it the same as it was in the corridor from 2 times earlier? Has the red light of one of the 3 cameras on the ceiling been on during all 10 previous times I passed this corridor, or only in this, the current 11th instance? Is the actual reality I'm experiencing as a player univocal, or it is intelligible or arbitrary? These questions create a connection between the digital realism experienced as a game player and the physical realm surrounding the player. What is the relationship between the repeated gestures, actions, pathways experienced in real life and the activity of gameplay? What sort of comparison emerges when I reconsider the cyborg experience as a human being in the flesh versus the subway of the game experience as a digital avatar? In an attempt to elaborate and disentangle this question, the constant emptiness of the corridors and subway and trains in both games becomes significant. This emptiness again conjures up the concept of Ma, Nishida's intuitive knowledge, and Foucault's heterotopic space. In my own experience of Tokyo subways, I have rarely encountered deserted corridors and have never had occasion to sit in an empty subway car. Quite the contrary. In most cases, cars are filled with individuals, and corridors are bustling with people traveling to their destination in and out of the subway station. Foucault argues that the heterotopias are ambiguous spaces, an assortment of difference closely related to the in-betweenness of Ma, a place of intermezzo between utopian and dystopian spaces. The gameplay of Exit and Platform A embodies a collection of liminal ambiguities existing at the threshold of physical and metaphysical experience. Tangible reality collides, metamorphoses, and intertwines with the atemporal space of Nishida's intuitive knowledge. The subway is a place traversed to reach a destination, often crowded with people in a hurry, preoccupied with things to come, the next duty or activity. It is a place navigated but not truly inhabited, one of that requires only minimal attention. Beyond all the similarities between the two games, there are differences in the manner of their gameplay. In Exit 8, every iteration of walking through the seamless subway corridor leads to the next step of the game, a reset to Exit A or an unlocking of the next exit. In Platform A, by contrast, the player may find himself walking through several cars without any changes in both the environment and platform number. In Exit 8, once we identify an anomaly, we should immediately turn around and retrace our step, which leads to the next exit. However, in Platform A there is no turning back, as the car doors are always locked once the player moves into the following car. These different approaches to repetition are noteworthy. In Exit A, the player retraces the step to progress to the next exit, creating a soft loop or mirror effect. In Platform A, the player must move forward with no option to turn back. In Exit A, the player moves through corridors entirely covered with white tiles. In Platform A, the train moves along a tunnel, with car windows offering a reflection of the side of the train, empty seat advertisement grab alls, and the solitary seated passenger staring at his mobile screen. However, the player does not see himself reflecting the windows. We are invisible or non-existent. This peculiar characteristic of the game provokes intriguing question. Is the player's lack of a reflection because we do not exist in the digital realm? Or it is because the mechanism of repetition, the spatio-temporal whirlpool of man, obliterates and denies the physical presence of the human body? Does the lack of an image here of ourselves as player allude to our existence only in the world outside the digital screen? Or else, is this about maintaining a neutral stance and avoiding any reference of body shape, characteristic of features? I will temporarily leave this question unanswered to continue the process of disentangling further characteristics of the two games, but the question above will be revealed later. To proceed with the analysis of game feature in Exit 8 and Platform A, I open a short parenthesis for a definition of habitus following Pierre Bourdieu. In sociological terms, habitus includes socially ingrained habits and dispositions shared by people with similar background. According to the French sociologist, the habitus is acquired through imitation, mimesis, within the social environment which encompasses individual experience and outcomes. Bourdieu posits that habitus consists of various propensities, including bodily gestures, mental habits, schemes of perception, classifications, appreciation, feeling, and action. Furthermore, Bourdieu maintains that these attitudes and dispositions influence propagation of the social structure of the individual habitus. Habitus and consensus are sustained by the meta-narrative of time that imposes a chronological and recursive rhythm on activities regulated by social calendars, rooted in economic and religious affairs. Elaborating on Bourdieu's notion of habitus, I noticed that in Exit 8 and Platform A, the forced proximity to masses of individuals in packed stations and subway cars create a pattern of detachment from an uncomfortable, perhaps disturbing space overflowing with people. Furthermore, I noticed that the only individual met in the subway corridor and car is holding a mobile phone, Exit 8, and staring at it, Platform 8. This mirrors the common real-life experience where many individuals, not solitary ones as in the game, are staring at their mobile screen, busy with their own affairs, perhaps shielding themselves from the proximity of countless strangers packed in train cars. Hurried commuters avoid each other in a quick-paced race through subway corridors, gates, platforms, and exits, maintaining a somatic relation to the space that is practical and attentive. The design of the subway environment, the movement of massive commuters, the repetition of ingrained gestures produces a tempo neatly in accord with economic pressures. In his Phenomenology of the Alien, German philosopher Bernard Waldenfels addresses the topic of attention. Through example encompassing the philosophical, artistic, and socio-economical, Waldenfels brings out overlooked features of attention and the involvement of all the senses in what he calls the technique and practice of attention. While Waldenfels acknowledges the difficulty in categorizing attentions, he provides insight at the variable in the context of this investigation in perceptual features of video games. He mentioned that the subjective active attention, the anonymous mechanism of observation, such as monitors and screens, the matter of selection, the difference between what is there to be seen and heard versus what we actually end up hearing and seeing, the specificity of a time and space of attention, what is seen and heard versus what is unseen and unheard, and the pathology of attention, agoraphobia, claustrophobia, overconcentration. The subway spaces of Exit 8 and Platform A provide a relevant illustration of Waldenfeld's exploration of attention. The subway environment by design seems to prompt us to evade attention, inviting commuters to focus elsewhere, such as the mobile screen, the virtual world of internet, or the entertaining universe of a mobile game. Selecting what to hear and see shield us from the overwhelming sounds, buzzes, announcements, lights, and people in the subway. This detachment is achieved through the use of technological prosthetics, such as earplugs, headphones, devices, screens, and occasionally printed book. The subway space may thus provoke pathologies of attention such as agoraphobia and claustrophobia due to the excessive exposure to mass of moving people in the potentially suffocating underground space. However, Exit and Platform 8 require the player to reconsider the environment and pay attention to details usually dismissed as unimportant, relegated to the background of routine actions. The process of foregrounding elements of the subway environment usually dismissed from the field of attention may also explain why this video game exhibits characteristics of the Foucauldian heterotopic space, an intermezzo between utopia and dystopia, embodiment of the metaphysical, a temple of phenomenological reality of man. It is a space that does destabilize routine and displaces the ordinary habits imposed by social economics. In real life, the subway, like other similar places, seems to establish specific habits through the design of its space, fostering and enforcing the social habitus. But in Exit 8 and Platform A, the player is suddenly asked to reconsider and re-evaluate the significance of such places, routine gestures, events, and the very space of time and space. As if, instead of ignoring or inattentively scanning objects, signs, and spaces in the subway environment, the player gains a novel awareness of the place traversed, of corridors, trains, and other individuals, in the process producing the effect of making visible what usually remain in the background of attention, dismissed, or even invisible. As if, to become visible again in the window's empty reflection of the movie subway train, we must go through the process of acknowledging ourselves, thereby achieving a sense of emplacement within a continuum of body-mind environment that is usually denied in such space of unremitting displacement, subways, airport, train station, hospital, etc. Hence, Exit 8 and Platform A allow us to reimagine passive routine, perhaps converting dystopia into utopia and making visible the invisible.